So for the longest time now, we have been talking about a leadership transition, a change in Karnataka, and to talk about the implications electorally, politically, the internal ramifications for the Congress, what it means for the BJP in Karnataka as well. I have a panel of experts. I have Mr. B.S. Arun, who is a very senior journalist from Karnataka. I have Mr. Sandeep Shastri, who is election analyst, political analyst. And I also have Surabhi Hodigere, who is a spokesperson for the BJP, on what she thinks will be the implications of this change for the state BJP itself. Coming first to you, Mr. Arun, we all know that Siddaramaiah, senior politician, someone who was longest serving chief minister of Karnataka, and someone who has had a huge base in Karnataka in terms of the OBC leader he's called, and AHINDA we keep talking about. How is that going to be affected, and is that one of the important calculations when this is happening? One side, of course, is this electoral arithmetic that we talk about, and second, of course, is the organizational pressure and aspirations of DK Shivakumar.
Well, electorally, it's very important that the Congress continues to have the support of Siddaramaiah as he had been giving the party over the last decade or so. That's because, as you mentioned, he is a leader, unquestioned leader of the vast section of the people in Karnataka, which includes the AHINDA, an acronym for the minorities, the Dalits, and the backwards. So this is Siddaramaiah's very strong base, and he, across the state, he commands that respect, he commands that following, and because of which, he becomes a very, very important leader in Karnataka. If you take a Congress history, in the last 10 years, it's been mainly to Shivakumar that the party came to power in 2013 because of Siddaramaiah, that the party came to power in 2013 and again in 2023. No less contribution was made by Shivakumar. I'm not denying that. But then since we are on Siddaramaiah, I must say that, his contribution had been very great. And that's the reason why he was given the chief ministership. And because of this, he commanded a large following among the MLAs, both in 2013 and in 2023. 2023, after the 135 MLAs, I think close to or more than 100 were with him, and they may be still with him. So this was one reason why.
Reports, in fact, seem to suggest that reports seem to suggest that even in his latest trip to Delhi, he had carried a list of the MLAs who support him to show that the biggest numbers are with him.
Well, he need not show. Almost everybody knows, especially the high command. People like Kharge and Rahul, or any of the high command office bearers know this. I don't think he will have to show that. So that's the reason why Congress high command thinks twice, and also it has to be very careful in placating his egos and acceding to his demands. And that's the reason why it has taken them so much of time. Over the last 1 year at least, and especially in the last 6 months, when the government completed 2.5 years, this, the intensity of Shivakumar in demanding this post grew. That was because of the perceived agreement that happened between him and Siddaramaiah at the time of, just before the swearing in of Siddaramaiah in 2023. Yeah. So this has been, the Siddaramaiah story, a very strong regional leader of a very strong AHINDA leader who has mass following across the state. His Kuruba community, Mr. Shastri will agree with me, I hope. This Kuruba community has, at least 5,000 votes in each assembly constituency, and they solidly back him. They give that last mile push to the Congress in any election, especially after Siddaramaiah came to Congress. So this has been his strength, and that's why Congress High Command is very careful, in ensuring, and it wants to ensure that Siddaramaiah won't be taken for granted, and his wishes will be met.
Yeah. Let me take this to Dr. Shastri. Siddaramaiah has been very reluctant, despite the noises that DK Shivakumar has been making and the kind of tension that seemed to be there, political tension. Siddaramaiah seemed most reluctant to give up his chief minister post, and understandably so. What do you think has made him now, in a sense, concede that he is going to give up his seat and pave way for a leadership transition? Is it really smooth? And if they want to make it seem like a smooth transition, do you believe after the exit also there is going to be that smoothness, because there is a cabinet formation that has to happen, and there will be negotiation that will be have entered into, even in who is to be given what post, including that of the KPCC chief?
You see, until yesterday, there was a huge talk of uncertainty of will it happen, will it not happen, when will it happen, if it will happen. All these questions were coming up. And I think we just need to look at Chhattisgarh, Himachal Pradesh, and Rajasthan to be able to see how the Congress handled or mishandled these situations in those states. So I think this time around, the Congress High Command has sought to tread carefully, knowing that a repeat of what has happened in other states should not happen. So, in a sense, they pulled it to the time that they could. And they pulled it to a moment where they realized any more stretching would not really be a benefit for the party. And the issue was brought up, I believe, yesterday before the chief minister, that there is now time to quit and hand over. Something which I think the chief minister was expecting for some time. As many people are saying, his second term has been very, very different than his first term, where in the first term he was assertive, this time he has not been as much, or as some would argue, not been allowed to be as much by the internal dynamics of the party in the state. Now, coming to the question, I would personally believe that, as was said by Arun just now, there will be that uh, transition happening, transfer happening. But as part of that transfer, I think Mr. Siddaramaiah will make sure of several things. He will make sure that there is somebody in the KPCC chair who is a loyalist. He would make sure that there are deputy chief ministers in the government who represent the caste diversity that he would like, and the Ahinda Ahinda group that he represents. He would also make sure that his loyalists, and there are a large number of them, are accommodated in the cabinet, and more are included, those who are waiting. He would also want to make sure that his son is accommodated in in the cabinet. So these are things which, now that he has to give up the position, he will make sure is taken care of. I don't know whether Arun agrees with me. I don't think he's too keen to shift to Delhi. He is not keen to move to national politics. He has consistently maintained that. Even if he accepts a Rajya Sabha seat, I think his heart will be in Karnataka, and he will be more focused on developments in the politics of the state. And he would believe that he has to continue to be in state politics to protect the people who are depending on him and who look to him for offering leadership. And in the remaining time that the Congress has in its present term, I think he would continue to be an important force and continue to play an important role, is how I see it, even though he may vacate the chief ministership.
Yeah, we'll also come to that discussion about whether he can actually take on an national OBC leader role, and is it possible for a leader who's actually spent a lot of time only in Karnataka. I'll come to Surbi. Surbi, the BJP has been consistently criticizing this government, saying that two-engine government, or something that's paralyzing the running of the state, because it's running with two leaderships, and they seem to be constantly, at cross purposes, at least politically, the voices that have been coming out. Uh, what is the BJP now looking at? You have been talking about paralysis of governance and administration in the state. Now, if a transition happens, this Congress can claim that they did a smooth transition. One very senior leader, and then another leader who can be the hope for the future. So, what is the BJP strategy politically going to be?
I think if and when the Congress completes a smooth transition, then the conversation can, go towards that. But I believe we're in the midst of it, so tough to say what's going to happen or not. Yes, we have been speaking about governance paralysis, and rightfully so, because predominant conversation for the last 3 years has been, even before CM Siddaramaiah became, took on the CM mantle. There's always been this conversation of what is going to happen to DK, what is going to happen to the CM chair for 2.5 years. Post that, this has been the longest running OTT series in Karnataka in the last couple of years. Most reliable, because there is one, suddenly there's a November Kranti, one election happens, something else happens, no, the issue will get fixed here and there. So it's been a predominant conversation for sure. I think from the perspective of the Bharatiya Janata Party, we've been very clear that it's a matter, it's not merely an internal matter, because it's not a selection of the KPCC president. It is a conversation on the CM's chair. What we've consistently tried to highlight is that it has had real implications on governance, whether it is the RCB related issue, whether it's the matter of important files moving or not, whether it's the matter of Grihalakshmi. There was a conversation, debate on the Grihalakshmi funds coming through. There's been two sort of wings that have been happening, and two banas, as they call it in Kannada, two factions in Karnataka politics and in Karnataka government as well. I think one of the viral photos in the last couple of days, which is very empty Vidhan Sauda, because all the ministers, all the MLAs, all the chief minister, DCM have had to go back and forth to Delhi. It's kind of been symbolic to what has happened in the last 3 years. So we've been raising the governance paralysis, rightfully so, because that has been going on. Now, on the matter of what happens and how does our role as opposition change, how are we looking at 2028? I think the conversations on identity, caste, this is, I leave it to the political analysts. But as a opposition member and as a citizen, what I can say is that what has been DK Shivakumar's biggest achievement in the last 3 years? He spoke about making sure that Bengaluru is going to be back on its feet, a global city, brand Bengaluru. We've seen the opposite happen since the five corporations came into being. There's been more infrastructure issues, more flooding every time it rains, and a very severe garbage crisis. So when he takes on the chief minister mantle, he has a lot to prove. It's not as simple as a leadership transition makes everybody forget that there is a problem that happened with Siddaramaiah government. People are still, they know that it's Congress, and he's always been the DCM. So it was always, the conversation always had CM Siddaramaiah and DCM DK Shivakumar. He was never outside of the
Yeah.
government. So I think there's a lot more to fix and lot more to contend with. You have a high, less capital expenditure in the last couple of years, high debt, and a lot of spending on welfare schemes. The economy is not in a great place. The state's revenue generation is subpar. So all of these things need to be taken into account. And
Yeah.
in 1 year you have elections. So it's not. I don't think that a bed of roses is being offered to DK Shivakumar. He'll have to really prove himself, and especially when the track record is abysmal.
So Survi makes some important points, Arun, and these are challenges, of course, not just for a Karnataka, but it's a very prosperous state, and it's one of the most progressive states in the country itself, and therefore people's perception in a capital city like Bengaluru also matters about how the politics has played out in the state, I guess. Now with the Vocaliga leader at the helm, with DK Shivakumar, and whoever becomes, is the KPCC chief as well, facing the next big challenge, will having such a leadership affect the Congress itself? And this transition, once it happens, like Dr. Shastri, you were mentioning that he may want to stay on in Karnataka, whereas the Congress leadership seems to have offered him that national role, saying that you come to Delhi, you become a Rajya Sabha MP, you represent the OBC face for the party. Is that something that can really materialize? Given your experience of politics, does it really work like that an OBC leader from a state can go to the center and represent the OBC community for the party?
Well, it's quite well known that Siddaramaiah would be very comfortable in Karnataka and not in Delhi. But then, given the circumstances, if he doesn't go to Delhi, then he will continue as a mere MLA. And every day when the session is on, he has to sit in the house, that's the Vidhan Sabha, and just merely watch Shivakumar, in his role as a chief minister. I'm sure Siddaramaiah would not like to do that. So I think the force of circumstances would be such that he may be, more willing, considering this factor, he would be more willing to take up the Rajya Sabha seat. There was also speculation that he would become leader of the opposition, but I don't think so. One, because because of his lack of familiarity with Hindi, and second, because he doesn't know much of Delhi except meeting some senior leaders of the party. He doesn't know much even of the Rajya Sabha or Lok Sabha. So I think he would, if at all, he would continue. He would be there as a member of Rajya Sabha. Elections of which are on 18th, and the nominations would close on 8th. So before that, we would be knowing about the future of Siddaramaiah, whether he would continue in Bangalore or whether he would, take up the Delhi stint. Now, having said that about the next elections, the Congress would like Siddaramaiah to be firmly leading the party as far as one of the strong faces of the party, may not be of as chief minister, but as a strong leader of the party, because party depends on him a lot. Because party wants, he's a very well-known vote catcher now, and party wants to encash on that, his popularity, his vote catching ability, his following that he has across the state. So to that extent, Shivakumar has to keep him in good books. He has to be pacified, and the ministry that he would be asking for his loyalists need to be given, and there will be a discussion on who will become the PCC president. As of now, the name of Satish Jarkiholi, the current PWD minister and a loyalist of Siddaramaiah, a Dalit from the Belgaum region, very strong, a powerful family of the Jarkiholis, three brothers who are in different parties. Uh, so he would be the, he has already thrown his hat in the ring. He wants to become the PCC president, and in 2028 a CM candidate also. So that is the sort of the story behind the PCC presidentship. So to what extent he would become the president, and will Siddaramaiah sort of stress on his election as the PCC chief, and whether Shivakumar and the High Command will agree to that, that remains to be seen. I think that could be one the important responsibility that needs to be selected, that needs to be cleared by the party high command after the supposed swearing in of Shivakumar, which they say is going to be on Friday.
Dr. Shastri, you mentioned that Siddaramaiah would like to continue, and Arun also agrees that he would be more comfortable in Bengaluru. But will that make DK Shivakumar that much more uncomfortable, considering that huge numbers of the MLAs are loyalists of Siddaramaiah? Will that make DK Shivakumar's working a little more difficult as well? And the second aspect, of course, about having a Vocaliga leader, and how is that going to affect the electoral catchment area for the BJP and for the Congress? Will that lead to some realignments?
Uma, I largely agree with the points that Arun has made. And I think there are multiple political bridges that have to be crossed as we go forward. I would still maintain that, especially given what you said, that there are more than possibly 100 MLAs loyal to Siddaramaiah in the fold of the Congress MLAs, that makes it even more imperative for Siddaramaiah to remain in state politics, to retain his hold over the party at the state level. So I think and he has always been in state politics. He has only once, he has contested Lok Sabha elections and not won. And he has largely been, he has only been at the state level politics. So at this stage of his career, would he want to gravitate to national politics? I'm not too sure. I think his heart and his interest would basically lie in state politics. And yes, that would be a minor or maybe even a major challenge for the new chief minister when he takes over, that he would have a backbencher who is the former chief minister, who also becomes a center of focus within a party, especially within the assembly. So that, yes, will be there. But I think Siddaramaiah would prefer to remain in state politics, would prefer to remain as an MLA, and wield the type of influence he is able to wield given his role in politics in the state for long. Now, does this impact on the functioning of government? Very much so. Just as it impacted Siddaramaiah's government. Because we all make this point about how Siddaramaiah's first term has been very different from his second term. Second term, he has not been as assertive, as effective, and as he was when he was in his first term. And does that repeat itself when you have a change of leadership, because you have a alternative center of power continuing, just as there were two centers of power when Siddaramaiah was in power? Would you have this continuation of two centers of power? How will they settle some of these equations? The political accommodation that has to be provided, KPCC president, deputy chief ministers, etc. Now, all those permutations and combinations is something we will see playing out in the coming days. But then, as a citizen, we would ask the question, what about governance? People get various positions, political accommodation happens, but when does the task of meaningful governance actually become the focus of attention? For the citizen, that becomes the primary focus. And it would be important for the Congress, if it is looking at the next election, it is important for the party to keep that factor in mind.
Absolutely. That's what Surabhi was also referring to when she said that governance and a lot of challenges still left before the next elections to delivery of those promises. Of course, Mr. Siddaramaiah has put out a post on X claiming that every promise that the Congress had made has been fulfilled, of course. But in the run up to the elections, this transition, of course, happening 2 years down, we are going to have elections, and this transition has now happened. At this stage, you're talking about even if the transition is smooth, the road ahead may not be that smooth for DK Shivakumar. But Surabhi, would you agree that the Congress, in that sense, seems to have handled its leadership transition? They say they have more talent, and that's why these kind of contests come up in every state. They're more democratic, and therefore these kind of voices of multiple leadership claims come up. And they seem to have learned their lessons, and that's why Kerala did well, and now Karnataka also smoothly so.
I wouldn't, like I said, the saga has yet to end. So I wouldn't say that the smooth transition has happened as yet. Let's see what happens in the next couple of days. And, this is also a state which has seen an unceremoniously, a chief minister being unceremoniously ousted. Rajiv Gandhi did so to Virendra Patil. And we saw that an entire vote bank was lost, or, community decided not to vote for the Congress based on that one unceremonious dismissal. So obviously they've had more time to relearn and learn. This new leadership in the Congress has had its own set of states where they've really had issues, and they've had, see, internal democracy when you've already put a chief minister in place is, I don't think you call that democracy, you call that infighting. That means that you don't have hold on your party or its cadre. But fair, all these things come up in politics, all these things tend to happen across states. But I wouldn't say
Yeah.
that the Congress has a great track record in how they've handled their senior leaders across different states. That has been visible both in Rajasthan, in Madhya Pradesh, in Assam, where Himanta Biswa Sharma left. So their
Yeah.
track record has not been great. They've had even in Kerala, it took 10 days. It's not like it happened altogether very very quickly, and there were different equations amongst different leaders there that I don't think is comparable to Karnataka. I do believe that what we are seeing is definitely a transition in terms of generation, in terms of age. We've had senior leaders who've retired
Yeah.
across parties, and newer leadership come through. But that question remains: is it old wine in a new bottle? Are we looking at the same type of governance? Are we looking at the same type of administration and the same type of political discourse as well? I've heard a lot of people on national media in the last couple of days admire DK Shivakumar's role as a party strategist, admire his ability to problem solve, his ability to be organizationally very strong and relevant. But him as an administrator has always been a question mark. A lot of people in the last couple of days have been, atting me on X, saying that some as extremist as all the minerals in our state are going to be sold off right now. This is not my statement. This is people on social media. There is a genuine fear that he's more of a business person than an administrator. So we don't know what the next 2 years is going to hold, what projects are going to be pushed through, what the tunnel road has become almost like a showcase for what real estate heavy
Yeah.
projects like DK Shivakumar has been thinking about. So we don't know what the next 2 years is going to be about. And also, having said
Challenges
that,
certainly several challenges several certainly for the new chief minister, even as we have elections just less than 2 years from now. Thank you so much, Dr. Shastri, Mr. Arun, as well as Surbhi, for joining us and sharing your views and your perspective on what is going to be the road ahead in Karnataka. Thank you so much for being with us.